Hello and welcome to the Granstrom Podcast Super Soul Model Series, where I help people tune and tap into their natural state of well-being. This week's guest is Tim Dingle. Tim has been involved in education for the last 30 years. He's been a former headmaster, an ex-chairman of the England Schools Rugby. He's got a background in medical research, neuroscience, leadership, sports, stand-up comedy, speaking, mediation. Tim's been around the block a bit, it seems. Now Tim is speaking, training and coaching people to be amazing every day. Welcome to the show. This week's guest, Tim Dingle. Thanks, Tim, for coming.
My pleasure. It's a great pleasure to be here.
So, Tim, you've got a very wide and knowledge of experience, no doubt a lot of wisdom you've collected along the way. So you've got a smorgasbord of experience, it seems. And how did you get to this philosophy of wanting to inspire people to be amazing every day?
I mean, I think that's the key, actually. I can't make anybody amazing. I can't make anybody do anything. I have learned over the years to find a way to distill all my knowledge, all my academic experience, all my experiences in life, all my reading. I'm a voracious, I think like yourself, voracious reader. I try and read a book a day. I try and I've written lots and lots of books, but I guess what I learned was that little droplet of wisdom, that little distillation is all I've got. And that wisdom is to try to inspire people to be amazing every day. And it's complex. The story is complex how I got there. But I guess the key elements are that I follow a pretty natural format of being able and going into teaching in academia and research. My degrees were in neuroscience and an MBA and teaching degree and then in mediation. But the last 14 years, I've been sort of working on a platform to combine everything. So whether it be stand-up comedy or whether it be medical science, whether it be knowledge I've acquired in the wellness field and breathing and things like free diving, combining them all together to actually have a product that's pretty small, pretty digestible, pretty much something that people can take quickly, that can do something powerful if people want to. Again, it goes back to inspiration rather than giving and making and doing and all those sort of things that you just can't. But people have to go there. So,
there was something that you just said there that really strikes a chord, and inspiring people is kind of drawing the breath from within someone out into the world, and motivating somebody is kind of like pushing them to do something. And you've got that old adage, you can't make a horse drink the water, you can only lead them to the water. And inspiration is that kind of thing where you kind of want to go and take that drop of distilled wisdom.
Yeah.
And I've really enjoyed listening and reading about what you've been up to in the last week or so since we spoke, and I'm always fascinated to see what makes people tick, and then understanding how are they actually going out and making an impact in the world. And I know you've got your 30 years of experience of all this kind of incredible smorgasbord of different activities and your interests. But what's the sort of turning point that makes you think, do you know what, I want to inspire people, but what's actually the driver behind that? What's the why? What's the bit that's actually making me go, do you know what, this is what I feel my calling is to do now? Because there's a lot of people in the audience who'd be thinking, do you know what, I love to be inspired, but I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's only when I actually can listen to the voice from within that's sort of igniting a spark to move in the right direction that is what sort of calls you into action.
It's a very, very good question. We always want to start with the why. The why for me was, I guess, 2010, maybe 2009, when I knew I had all this experience. I was trying to sell myself. I'd come out of education, I'd gone to mediation, gone over to Harvard and learned how to be a negotiator and mediator at Harvard law, and come back and was training people in that. But I was unhappy. I was genuinely unhappy. I couldn't put my finger on it. I was down, and I didn't know what was going on, because I was trying to sell all my experiences, and people weren't buying it. And it was just an endless cycle of me going online, typing, selling effectively. And it just wasn't working. So I wrote myself a little memo, which I've sort of learned, which helps me define what happened on that one time. And people ask me when it was. It was on a beach in Ireland. It was on my home town in Ireland called Dingle, on the Strand, on the big sand. And I sat there waiting for inspiration. It didn't happen. But I wrote these words, and it was, this is your wake-up call. Life is just too short. It's too precious to be wasted on being just average or ordinary. And I don't want to wake up and think, where did that go? Or wish I could have that time again. Right now, I had to make a decision that was simple. I wrote these words: choose to be amazing every day. See, just the working harder, collecting more stuff or earning more money simply doesn't work for me. Each day, each moment, each element of what I do is a rare gift. And my joy was trying from that moment on to inspire enough people to leave a legacy, leave more behind than I've taken. And I was ready to make that next step. Some people say the Latin carpe diem, seize the day. For me, it was walking back into town from the beach in Ireland and seeing a distillery and seeing the Dingle distillery, and it had sort of the spirits going through and being distilled into this very pure wisdom. And I guess it was that moment that I decided that I'd reach out to as many people as I could, try and influence, inspire, and the word inspire, you're right. But I think more crucially is that's the word amazing, because people think inspired to be amazing, you can jump over buildings.
Yeah, I just wanted to stop there, because this is actually a really good point. Words all come from source, don't they? They come from some source, and the English languages are full of it. We've got Anglo-Saxons, Jutes, Germanic, Vikings, French, it's all over the place.
Yes.
But how words come into being, a lot of our English words are from Latin, obviously, but I find the English language actually fascinating because they have main root words. So the word amazing, we use it quite often, but sometimes it lacks a little punch. But I want you to carry on with your story here, because there is something in this which makes people will think again about this word.
Well, when I teach this word, what it's about, and I was teaching it last week in the Middle East, but people say in the morning to you, how are you? And the first thing people say when how are you is fine, which is awful, the worst word in the English language. How are you? Fine. And it doesn't mean anything. But I don't want them to say awesome or great or fabulous. But this word amazing has a special etymology. It comes from 1582. So King Henry VIII built Hampton Court Palace, and it had built for him. And in the back of it, it had built a beautiful hedge maze, one of the first, I think probably the first proper defined hedge maze for fun. And people went into it and you got lost and came out 20 minutes later.
I've been to it many times and live locally.
Exactly. And when people came out, there was no word in the English language to really describe that feeling of wow and something. So they said they were from the maze. They were amazed. Wow. And that word specifically in my context means that most people live their lives kind of trapped in a dogma, trying like a rat in a maze, trying to find its way out. And we try to find that moment, that release, that thing that says, it's that, and we're let free. So the word amazing doesn't mean superpowers. It doesn't mean you are somehow gifted or blessed with something else. It doesn't mean that at all. It means you're not thinking in the old manner about whatever it is that's going on in your life.
And I love that, because that means that every time I will think about that word, I will use it with a different positioning mentally. And that is empowering, isn't it? And inspiring as well, because now you know more than you did a few moments ago. You just think, it's a bland word, and people go amazing, and you're thinking, yeah. But it isn't. It's like, wow, I'm thinking differently than other people. How are you doing? I'm amazing. Because you could currently say, I'm thinking differently than I used to think.
Correct. So that moment you just said it, and the way you said it, there was a sort of almost an energy release within you. I can't explain it quite, but I see it in everybody every time they say it for the first time in the knowledge of what the word means. They sort of say, if I said to you, how are you? And you say, I'm amazing. There's almost this sort of smile and self-belief. Oh, okay. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean, anything but I'm not thinking that way. I'm not thinking that old way that I have to get up at, ridiculous hours, go to work all day, come home, watch television, go to sleep. I mean, terrible lifestyle choices, in my opinion now. But, I made them like that until 12, 14 years ago. Now I don't do that kind of thing. My belief structure has changed completely. So I believe in very much a scientist. I'm very much somebody who's experiential. I've got to believe in it. But I have investigated and I have researched and I have done more than watched a few YouTube videos. I am absolutely in the belief structure that says we don't need to think that way anymore. And if you change your mindset, you change your brain, your patterns, the neuroscience of your brains, you change everything about you, including the physiology, the way you act, the way you behave. Wow. I mean, it is truly, that's a moment of belief. And it starts with one word: amazing.
And a pause for thought is always beautiful, because if you can have a space between spaces, a space between one thought and the next, it just gives you an opportunity to be present. That space is what meditators always try to get to. I've been meditating for 2 decades, and that space, however long that space is, sometimes it's 1 or 2 seconds, and sometimes it can be longer. But if you get there, that's what I call success in meditation. So if you sit there for 20 minutes in a meditation practice and you get to that space and it only lasts 20 to 40 seconds, you'll be like, that was a great meditation. And what you've just said there, when you are given context, you are given history about looking at something differently, it reminds you of how powerful you are. So to the audience, it's really important that you realize or remember, which means to remember who you really are at your deep roots, that you are more than you think you are. You are more than what society or the media or what you see anywhere has taught you to think. There is this space where you have this infinite depth. I like to talk about this because this used not to be my experience either. I was like, get along, boom, like, wow. I had some experiences snowboarding in a mountain where I felt like, wow, I feel completely at one with a mountain and there's nothing going on in my head. If you ski or snowboard or surf, you will know this feeling. You cannot not tell a surfer or a snowboarder that there's something else going on here. Which is why, yeah, and so what you shared with that word amazing, and just even the understanding of how words can really transform your day or even transform the way you speak and interact with people is very powerful, rather than just to have a quick reactive fine, as you were saying. So Tim, I guess my next question is that with all your research, all your background, and you're inspiring people with just that, how to be amazing every day. So what are the techniques where you teach people to or at least lead them to awaken to that inspiration from within? So what methods do you use in order? I mean, for me, I've got my several healthy habits that I have in place that have been there with me for 2 decades or so and still growing. But how do you awaken people to inspire within themselves to be amazing?
Well, this one requires a little bit of background, because I wouldn't just jump in with a technique with anybody.
Sure.
I don't think it works quite like that. But I have a practice, but mine is very brief. It's very short. It's actually 3 minutes plus a little bit of reading. But it's something I do for myself, and I've given to lots and lots of people. But let me give you the background. So this all happened again in that period of time of my change, my transition from being thinking in the old way, the mindset, the fixed. You get learning, you're learned, you have information, you have knowledge, to moving towards something completely different. And it happened when I was anchoring a boat, actually, in the Caribbean, and I put the anchor down and I tried to swim down to the anchor, and I couldn't make it. It was 6 meters, and I couldn't hold my breath and pull myself down. I didn't have any sub-aqua equipment. I didn't have my compressed air or anything, and I was furious with myself that I couldn't check the anchor. I was meant to do this in storms. I came back to the UK, joined a club in London to try and learn how to hold my breath for longer, I thought, called No Tanks, spelled with an X. No Tanks is a free diving club, and I learned on this course that actually what you've always thought when you dive underwater and you try and swim for long periods of time, and we try, if we're in stress or we stub our toe, we go, and we hold our breath. We take a deep breath in, we hold our breath. And it is actually the worst possible thing you can do. And I was curious about this because my science brain was thinking, okay, what does that mean? And holding your breath obviously has all sorts of scientific and physiological effects of, CO2, H plus ions and receptors and changes of state because you're holding your breath and you think your cells think you're going to die effectively. So it releases a lot of adrenaline into your body to try and fight this threat. And they taught us how to breathe slowly and rhythmically and evenly, I guess similarly, or in a similar fashion to that of meditation in a more general sense. But a sense of you are slowly in and you're slowly out. You're slowly in and you slow down. But you mustn't hold your breath either at the top or the bottom. So it's continuous, but very slow, very deep, as much as you can. And we were showing this in this room for training for no tanks. And we were asked to close our eyes because eyes let in light for the visual cortex, retina, all the processing power for lots and lots of bits of the brain that processes
stimulates the brain. I mean,
yeah,
I wear an eye mask meditating because otherwise
I've got one as well that says, don't disturb, I'm being amazing. so they close your eyes. Hearing's fine because it's the first sense that goes off when you go to sleep, the first to come back. Hearing, you hear stuff. And in fact, I talk all the way through when I teach people how to do this. And we did this, and I thought, well, that was lovely. That was a lovely 3 minutes, and nothing really happened, but okay, good. But then they made us get changed and go back to the swimming pool. And we'd been in the swimming pool when we arrived, and we were told originally to hold our breath and go face down in the water, and your buddy would hold the back of your head so you didn't bump it. And they would time it on a stopwatch, how long. And I started the day at 10 o'clock in the morning in the city of London, and I started it with, I'd held my breath for 1 minute and 7 seconds. I was quite impressed by that. My buddy was Australian, and he'd only done 45 seconds. I felt victory. I think that's how I was living at the time. But we did this breathing, got back, got changed, got to the side of the pool, did some candle breaths, but that didn't seem to be terribly relevant. But we were like this, slowly breathing, slowly in and slowly out, slowly in, and just slowing it right down. So literally my hand was describing like a sinusoidal rhythm, an S-shaped rhythm. But the critical thing was there was no stopping at the top and no stopping at the bottom. They told us, and we followed that. It didn't matter whether you breathe through your nose or your mouth. And I'm happy to say I don't know which I do half the time, but I just breathe slowly, rhythmically, and evenly for 3 minutes, and then we float off. So I did this, and I had a profound experience. It was probably one of the most profound experiences I've had, and it was in a busy City of London swimming pool at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon with an Australian holding my head. And I had a profound experience because I never took a last breath. I never went underwater thinking, must hold my breath. I just was completely on the out breath, and I pushed off, and I was hanging there in the water. And when I needed to breathe, I turned my head because it's a reflex. It's very hard to drown yourself in water. You can drown, but to hold your head under is very hard. Turn up, and I saw this Australian with this huge grin, and his face looked almost locked in shock because I'd just done over 3 minutes, and I couldn't believe that.
Wow, that's good.
I thought, this is weird, and I researched it, and I've done lots and lots of work over that period of time, 2 or 3 years of scientific work, working with other colleagues in different research fields and medical fields to work out what was going on. And particularly my father, who was head of medical research and master at Cambridge College, but he worked out with me that this is due to the fact of two things. One, you're slowing your metabolic rate down by breathing slowly, evenly, rhythmically. And two, you never take a last breath. So you never go, when you stop your foot, you go, when you hear bad news, you go, and those are bad things. Holding your breath is basically a bad thing to do in the way that traditionally we've done it. So a little bit of work he did on that, and sent me a load of scientific papers all about cytokines and cell communication and what's going on and H plus ions. And it's all very scientific because he hasn't any feel for anything that isn't but scientific, and I'm sort of the midway between, I guess. I believe that anything is possible. So I practiced this after a while, not with the pool in mind, but just to see whether it had any effect on my calmness and my life in general. So I started this practice of breathing just for 3 minutes, my eyes closed, slowly, rhythmically, and evenly.
Is there like is there an inhale and an exhale? Is it for a count? What's the count?
No, not really. It's literally up to the person or myself to do it. So it might be this. It might be. It really doesn't matter how long, but
And do you breathe? Do you open the mouth? Is it through the nose?
So I just said the nose or mouth. I don't really mind which it is.
Okay.
Or they told us they didn't mind because they were just divers. So I practice it largely through my nose when I do it. I demonstrate through my mouth so people could sort of hear what I'm doing, but I don't tend to personally use my mouth when I do it. But it's this slow, rhythmic, even breathing. Literally slows down as deep as you can get, but as slow as you can get. But there's no stop at the top or the bottom. So the exhale and inhale mustn't be held.
Is it like a deep? Is it so? I'm really intrigued, and a lot of my listeners here will have know about Wim Hof. Will know about Wim Hof's breathing. How similar is it to Wim Hof's breathing?
Similar but different.
Okay.
All right. So
Wim Hof, hold your breath after about 30 deep breaths. You're holding your breath for about a minute on the first round.
He is doing in a physiological sense, the science of it, I'm very clear on. So he is overstimulating the amount of oxygen in your blood, which you cannot measure. You can't measure oxygen in blood. It's impossible to do that. But you can measure H+ ions. So H+ ions, which are CO2, carbon dioxide, built from respiration in your body from the mitochondria. So it goes into the blood and you measure it. So something like Wim Hof or many of the other breathing styles, and there are lots on this box breathing, the 7, 8, there are different versions of it. They're all approximating the same thing, which is to get rid of as much CO2 from your body as you can.
Because as soon as you expel the CO2, what you're doing is then allowing more fresh oxygen in, which is helping your blood and helping your movement and circulation.
And it reduces your metabolic rate.
Reduces
your metabolic rate goes down, so you're using less oxygen.
Am I right in also saying it calms the nervous system as well? So you're getting that stimulation of calm brain, regulated heart coherence.
Right. Yeah. So HRV, heart rate variation, is the thing that came next when we did the measurements of it. But in terms of neuroscience of it, within the brain itself, what you're releasing is a lot of the chemicals, the neurotransmitters, are involved in calmness. But the extraordinary thing with this type of breathing, it happens very, very rapidly. But the real clue to it was the research that happened a year later, which the discovery of a hormone, I can't remember, but I've taught biology and researched science and physiology and neuroscience for 30 plus years, and I'd never heard of this hormone in your body, which is the most powerful hormone for what I do in my life, and is also the most common hormone in the human body, which is DHEA, dehydroepiandrosterone. It's a steroid hormone. It's released into your body, and it is, some people call it, me particularly, the amazing hormone, because it literally will slow your metabolic rate. It will calm you down. It make you curious. It will do all sorts of lovely things, and it's the opposite of cortisol, if you like. It's the balance between the two. So nasty cortisol, DHEA, brilliant over here.
So cortisol's fight or flight. So this is parasite.
No, adrenaline is fight or flight. Cortisol is more reduction of the immune system, but it's also it's alarm, it's awakeness, it's alertness, it's like twitching. It's the opposite of where you want to be after meditation is in cortisol. And long-term cortisol will make you sick and ill. So we want to be on the other side of the spectrum over here, where we want to be with DHEA, and we also want to have there's a hormone called ACTH, adrenocorticothyroid hormone, which is a calming hormone. And we put those two together, which is the meditative thing, and the DHEA thing, which produces this profound effect in only 3 minutes. So there's 2 years of research combined into that. That's a lot of reading, a lot of work, and a lot of trial and error and experimentation. But I got to the point, I found profound differences in the way I was thinking, the way I was acting, the way I dealt with people. I became more tolerant, more empathetic. I looked for solutions, and I solved more complex and difficult problems that are, right up there with the technologically advanced stuff you can imagine. I solved them after I was able to do this one technique and keep going with the discipline of doing it every day. So I do it for.
I think the key word that you've said there is discipline, because without discipline, without doing things regularly, you're never going to get the best best
Correct.
results. And I think we're all, as human beings, we want results. And unless we're actually improving our life in some kind of way, at least getting some sort of being able to see our progression, sometimes that can be really painful for us.
Yeah.
And so actually learning to be calm, learning to work with the breath, learning to have some sort of practice where you're able to feel this calmer state of being more of the time, this is going to actually tune you in to being more solution orientated.
Yes.
It's going to give you a much easier opportunity to receive ideas.
I would agree with that 100%. I think the classic view on calmness is one of you're nearer to sleep than you are to awakeness. I think it's the opposite is true. I think there's a calmness and curiosity, and you're in this amazing state where you can see more, learn more, do more, read more, distill more wisdom. And that's the state I want to be in most of the time.
And that actually makes people amazing because they're in this different receptive state.
Correct.
And as we're having this conversation, I feel a great deal of presence. I always try and do that with all my guests. And you dance in between this like wonderful sense of presence and alertness, this like high, this brainwave pattern. Maybe it's alpha brainwave pattern. But I as soon as I experience it, I'm like, oh, this feels like the best drug in the world because it's free, it's natural. This is the bit that made me stop drinking. This is the bit that made me change my diet. This is the bit that's kept me well for like 2 decades, pretty much. You know, a couple of little things. Keeps you young. It reduces you aging. You know, keeps your skin elastic, keeps your mind alert. You know, these keeps you a bit more fun and chirpy. I mean, even when life gets a bit, you know, challenging, which it will.
Bad things will happen to everybody. We know this. So stuff will come along which will interfere in our nice, smooth running of life. But if we have a practice, a discipline, something you do when nobody's looking, but you have changed the way that your physiology works, you've stepped out, the amazing bit of it, you have stepped out from where you were, and you notice those changes, which I claim that everybody I've worked with on this can feel something straight away, but it's then what they choose to do with it. There's one other caveat I'd add to this, which is very important. Once you do it, and you may notice it from your own practice and what you do, but after the 3 minutes, if you follow the breathing and you haven't stopped, and it's always this linked, slow, rhythmic, even breath, if at the end of it, you just open your eyes and you're back in the world, you'll feel a bit sort of almost discombobulated, a bit sort of spaced out. So I always try and snap that reticular activation state, that sort of that feeling of being in a trance. I try and snap it away, and I read. For my particular self, I wrote a set of rules on how to be amazing every day. You can find it on my LinkedIn, but I'll read those after we do it. If you want me to do it with yourself and anybody listening, I will then at the end of it ask you to gently open your eyes and listen to the words, and I'll read these to you very slowly and gently at the end of the 3 minutes, and it just will provoke in your brain a series of questions, because the brain loves questions. And every time, when I wrote this 10 years ago, every time I read it, I find something different in it, and it's powerful, and I hope will help the journey of people to make sure they are alert for the rest of the day.
Let's see if we can give that to the audience. I'm conscious we've got you know, a few minutes left, so let's just try and round this off. We've got best part of about 9 minutes or so, so let's just do that and give us enough time to be able to get those questions in, have the experience, get the questions in, and then let people know a little bit more where they can find you and read up on more of your material, Tim.
Okay, so let's do it. Let's dive into it.
Let's go in. I love an experience, so I hope you guys are all ready.
Okay, get yourself comfortable. Find wherever you find is comfortable, and be in a position where you can close your eyes and just listen to my voice. I'll talk for it as we start. So,
is it worth like shutting the curtains wherever you are, or does it matter?
Just close your eyes. Close your eyes.
Close your eyes.
If you've got an eye mask, even better. But if you haven't, don't worry, just close your eyes. And I'll do the timing and everything for it. So it's my voice you're listening to from now on. So what I'd ask you to do is really concentrate on the breath. So it's slowly in and slowly out. So it's slow inhale, slow exhale, and it's rhythm. And you're not stopping at the top or the bottom, but continuing the process. Slow, rhythmic, even breathe. Slowly in and slowly. And what you may find, even after about 30 seconds of doing this, we are starting to create within our bodies an increase in the very special, very beautiful, very lovely, amazing PGCE. And as it starts to circulate in the body, it arrives at the cells, the muscles, it arrives at the organs, it gets round to virtually every part of your body. It lowers all the stress levels, the cortisol-based stress, and starts to create a wonderful feeling of joy and bliss. And by doing this slow, rhythmic, even breathing, and if you get lost, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Because you know that the breath is everything. And each breath you take in, you don't hold it at the top or at the bottom. Slowly, nice and deep, and way out. Inhale and exhale. And as you're building towards it, we find that your body may already be experiencing the tingles as a feeling to change, whether it be your fingers or your toes. Maybe you're experiencing something around your mouth or your head, a feeling of, oh, that's nice. It's joyous. And it doesn't matter who you are or where you are, or you're experiencing this. It really doesn't matter. It's a profoundly physiological and effective way to take away stress from you. And we're approaching the last 30 seconds. It's very short. Everyone can do it every day. Just be disciplined. Do it when I get up, and I'll do it. I'll do it before I have to make it hard. And breathing in slow rhythm and even. And as we take in that time, my voice will just quieten. And as you slowly take that last few breaths in the 3-minute practice, I invite you to open your eyes very gently and listen to the words that I've written down for you. You can take them on my website and on my LinkedIn, but listen to the words as you open your eyes. These are your rules on how to be amazing every day. Smile and go slowly. Explore, play, and create novelty. Breathe slowly, rhythmically, and evenly. Understand your why. Learn, love, laugh, cry, and innovate. The past is gone, but your future is unwritten. No more excuses. You can change in a nanosecond. Have the courage to dream. Make an intelligent plan and see that plan to its end. Change your brain by changing your mind. Ask better questions. Listen, listen, listen. Separate the problem from the person. Say, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Be kinder each day. Read more than you thought possible. Simplify and edit, then amplify. Believe. Zoom out, then zoom in. Who said you can't? Smash your barriers. Exude passion. Aim for excellence always. There are no shortcuts. Great leaders create more leaders. Attitude is everything. Success happens when you take massive action. Let's make it happen right now, starting with you. Be amazing every day. And we're back.
Back in the room. Thank you, Kit. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I just wanted to say it's very relaxing just to imagine that rhythm of going in and out, not holding the breath. But also once you've had a little pause, in my studies, I found that after about 68 seconds, there's a significant change in your emotion if you're able to focus on the breath after a while. So 3 minutes of breathing is very powerful. But then to also be told something very positive after you've just relaxed, which is why I used to have fun whispering at my housemates and flatmates when I was at university, when we were in some sort of like dazed and confused state, but I'd whisper like positive things to them and they'd wake up and go, oh wow, it's amazing. So it's incredible how receptive the mind is to suggestion when we're relaxed. It's a sense of hypnosis, but hypnotizing yourself with positivity, hypnotizing yourself with a sense of like empowerment in an entertaining way, in a way that's uplifting, in a way that will bring you joy and happiness and hope, is a beautiful thing. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Tim, for sharing your wisdom, your experience, your distilled knowledge, and for that little breathing experience. Now, if people wanted to find you and know a bit more about what you do and your work, where could people find you?
LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn as a
LinkedIn
preference.
is your speciality.
Tim Dingle at LinkedIn, and you'll find everything there. And if you want a copy of the card, just message me and I'll send you a real life card.
That's fantastic. And if you've enjoyed today's podcast, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and make sure you go and find Tim on LinkedIn, because he does some wonderful work, and maybe you may consider hiring Tim for something or other down the line and tapping into his wisdom and experience as well. Tim, it's been an honor and a joy having you on the podcast today. Tim Dingle is this week's Super Soul Model. Thank you very much indeed, Tim.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.